want to begin by speaking directly to your exhaustion, the profound exhaustion of living like a leaf in the wind, the pain of having your mood, your peace, and your sense of worth dictated at every moment by the opinions of others, by the events of the day, by traffic, by the news on television. It is the feeling of being an emotional post-center of your own, of living in a constant state of reactivity, always defending yourself and being affected by forces that are completely beyond your. The title of our meeting is a powerful promise, but it needs to be understood with the depth it deserves. In the wisdom of Carl Jung, the goal of a conscious life is not to become a rock that feels nothing. That would not be strength, it would be a life unlived. The goal is to become the mountain. The mountain feels the icy wind, the torrential rain, and the weight of the snow, but its essence, its rocky center, is not shaken by them. Being unaffected, in the language of the soul, does not mean not feeling. It means that nothing and no one will have the power to remove you from your own center any longer. This unshakable stability does not come from an effort by our ego to control or suppress our emotions. That would be just another tiring battle. This strength comes from a deep and cultivated connection with what Jung called the self, the ordering, timeless, and indestructible center of our psyche. The self is our anchor in the storm, our rock foundation, the part of us that remains serene while the surface world is in chaos. Consider that most of us live only on the surface of the ocean of our and on the surface we are at the mercy of every wave of external events and every gust of wind of other people's opinion. The journey that Jung's philosophy proposes to us is not one of trying to calm the ocean. It is a dive. It is learning to find and inhabit the absolute calm of the ocean's depths, which remains perfectly still, no matter how violent the storm that. This video will not give you any tricks or tips for suppressing your emotion. It is intended to be a guide to the 5 stages of building this inner citadel. An alchemical process will take you step by step from reactive fragility to sovereign resilience, so that you can finally feel the storm without becoming the storm. The first step to building your inner fortitude is to make an honest diagnosis of your fragility, and this manifests itself in the pain of overreacting. It is the shame and confusion you feel after an outburst of anger over something small, like being cut off in traffic. It is the plunge into deep sadness because of a casual comment from a colleague. It is feeling that your emotional reactions do not correspond to the reality of the event, as if there were a hidden and exaggerated force within you that takes control. What Jungian psychology teaches us is that external events rarely have power in themselves. They act merely as fingers, as hypersensitive emotional buttons that already exist in our psyche. And Jung called these buttons complexes. A complex is a cluster of emotional energy that forms around a wound or an unresolved core belief, usually in childhood. It could be an abandonment complex, an inadequacy complex, or a powerlessness complex, and when an external event pokes complex, it is activated, and all the emotional charge associated with it is released at once. And here is the revelation that shifts the power back into your hands. You are not reacting to what the person did or what the event objectively meant. You are reacting to what their act meant to a wounded, childish, unconscious part of you. The power is not in the external trigger. The power is in the explosive charge that already existed within you, waiting to be detonated. Understanding this is the first and most crucial step in beginning to defuse this bomb. You stop blaming the world and start taking responsibility for your own reactivity. To begin identifying your complexes, we invite you to do a complex tracking. The next time you have a strong and disproportionate emotional reaction, once the dust has settled, ask yourself, what is the story this emotion is telling me about myself or the world? The story is always the same. Maybe it's no one values, or I will always be left, or I am not good enough, or the world is a dangerous place. This repetitive story is the voice of your complex. Give it a name. Think of your psyche as a house equipped with highly sensitive fire alarms, and these alarms are calibrated by a small but terrifying fire that happened in your childhood. Now, as an adult, any smoke from a single lit match, a harmless external event, sets off the alarm as if the entire house were on fire again. Your job to become unshakable is not to try to ban everyone in the world from using matches. That is impossible. Your job is to, with the light of your awareness, go into your own house and recalibrate your own internal alarms. Once you have diagnosed your emotional buttons, your ego's natural tendency is to try to protect itself. And the pain that arises here is the exhaustion of living constantly on guard. It's the exhaustion of spending your life avoiding difficult people, running away from challenging situations that might trigger your triggers, or pretending that you don't care about things when, in fact, deeply and painfully care. What's happening here is the activation of ego defenses. When our ego, our conscious self, is not anchored in the wisdom and strength of the self, it tries to protect itself from the pain of complexes with immature and, ultimately, ineffective strategy. The three most common are suppression, which is the act of pushing the uncomfortable emotion into the basement of the shadow, pretending it doesn't exist. Avoidance, which is the act of shrinking your world, of not going places and interacting with people so as not to risk being hurt. And intellectualization, which is the attempt to rationalize and analyze a feeling to death so as not to have to actually feel it. And the breaking of expectations here is brutal but necessary. These strategies don't make you stronger, they make you immensely more fragile, and they consume a gigantic amount of your vital energy. The emotion you suppress does not die. It becomes a monster that gains strength in the darkness. The world you avoid does danger. It becomes, in your increasing. The walls you build to protect you do not protect you. They imprison you away from life, joy. In order for you to begin to free yourself from these defenses, I invite you to a default defense diagnosis. Just observe yourself for a day with the curiosity of a scientist. What is your automatic and preferred reaction when emotional discomfort knocks on your door? Do you run away and distract your cell phone? Or with work? That is avoidance. Do you try to understand and analyze the logical reason behind the feeling? That is intellectualization. Or do you simply harden your body and pretend nothing is happening? That is suppression. Simply becoming aware of your habitual defense pattern is the first and most powerful step towards being able to choose a new one. Think of your ego when it is alone and disconnected from the self, as a frightened king trying to protect his castle. His strategy is to build ever higher walls, but these walls are made of glass. They give you a false sense of protection, but they are extremely brittle, and worse still, they completely isolate you from the life that pulses outside. The true strength of a castle is not in the height of its walls, but in the unshakable solidity of its foundation. And your foundation is yourself. After recognizing the ego's flawed strategy, pain that emerges is that of instability. It is the feeling of not having a solid self, of being a different person every day, depending on external circumstances or the moods of those around you. It is waking up feeling confident and going to sleep feeling like a failure because of a single criticism. It is the anguish of not having a center, an anchor, a place to return to when the storm hits. And it is to this anguish that Jung introduces us to the most important concept in all of his work, the self. The self is the archetype of totality, the divine and ordering center of our entire psyche. Think of it as the sun at the center of your inner solar system. It is the part of you that has witnessed every moment of your life, every joy, every pain, every thought, every emotion, but that does not identify with any of them. It is your eternal, unchanging I, the silent observer who was present on the day of your birth and who will be present at your last. And the revelation that frees us from the tyranny of reactivity is this: you are not your anxiety. You are not your success. You are not your failure. You are not someone else's opinion of you. You are the conscious space in which all these experiences come and go. The goal of the journey to becoming unshakable is not to stop being affected by it. It is to change your identification. It is to stop identifying with the phenomenons that passes and start identifying with the space that remains. To begin to feel this change in practice, I invite you to the sky meditation. Find a comfortable position, close your eyes, and take a few deep breaths. Then visualize your mind as a blue sky, vast, infinite, and perfect. And visualize your thoughts, feelings, bodily sensations, clouds of shapes, colors, and intensity simply passing through. Some clouds are dark and stormy. Others are light and white. Your task is not to fight the clouds or cling to them. It is simply to watch them pass by, while remaining identified not with the cloud, but with the sky itself, which is vast, silent, and ever-present. No matter how dark the cloud that crosses it, think of your life as a great play. Your ego is the main actor on stage, living intensely every scene, every dialogue, every emotion, and yourself is the wise director, sitting in his chair in the darkness of the theater, watching the entire play unfold. The director feels the emotion of the scene, he sympathizes with the suffering of the actor, but he never forgets that this is just a scene, a part of a much larger story that he himself has written and that he knows from beginning to end. The journey to becoming unshakable is to learn to see your life more and more through the eyes of the director. After finding your center, your anchor in the self, the journey leads us to the most practical challenge of all: what to do in the heat of the moment, how to deal with emotional triggers when they happen, instead of just regretting your uncontrolled reaction after the damage is done. The pain that arises here is that of powerlessness on the battlefield of real life. It is the desire for a concrete method to transform our reactivity into a conscious response. And the technique for this is an alchemical process of transmutation. The energy of a complex which is released when a trigger is activated can only be neutralized, dissolved, and reabsorbed when it is brought into the light conscious and observed with judgment, analysis, and, most importantly, without any resistance. Your consciousness is the alchemical fire that purifies the raw energy of emotion. And the revelation that makes this possible is deeply counterintuitive to our Western mind. You don't fight a trigger, you don't try to analyze it with logical mind in the heat of emotion, and you definitely don't try to suppress it. You feel it. You feel it fully, consciously, and with an almost scientific curiosity. By doing so, you stop feeding the complex the energy of your resistance and begin actively reabsorbing its energy back into your center, into your consciousness. You empty it of its power over you. This process can be practiced through a 4-step response. The next time you feel a trigger being triggered, remember this sequence. First, pause. The event happens. The emotion rises. Freeze. Don't move. Don't speak. Just take a deep breath, one time. Create a split second of space between the stimulus and your usual response. Second, name. In your mind, in a neutral way, give a name to what is happening. Say, "Oh, interesting. Anger is present." Or, "The story I am being disrespected just popped into my mind." This act of naming already puts you in the position of the observer. Third, locate. Shift your attention from the mental story to your body. Where do you feel the raw energy of this emotion? Is it a tightness in your chest, a heat rising in your stomach, a lump in your throat? Detach the physical sensation from the story your mind is telling about it. Just feel the energy as pure sensation. And fourth, witness. Now simply observe this energy in your body with calm curiosity. Don't try to make it go away. Don't try to change it. Just witness it. As a scientist observes a chemical reaction in a test tube, energy, when observed fully and without resistance, completes its natural cycle and invariably dissolves on its own. Think of an activated emotional complex as a very tight knot in a rope. Your habitual reaction of fighting, resisting, or trying to get rid of the emotion is like pulling on both ends of the rope with all your strength. This only tightens the knot even more. The alchemical method is to stop pulling. It is to examine the knot patient, to follow the thread with it, gently loosen it until almost by it unravels. After glimpsing the possibility of disarming your triggers, the mind may present one last pain, the pain of disbelief. The difficulty of even imagining what a life without the constant drama of reactivity would be like in practice. The belief that peace may be a boring or unattainable state, and that our nature is, and always will be, to be a leaf in the wind. What happens when you practice day after day, anchoring in yourself, is that the fruits of this journey begin to ripen in your life. They are not mystical or spectacular fruits. They are real, palpable, and profound changes in your way of being and interacting with the world. You discover a new way of living, a sovereign life. And the most beautiful break in expectations of all is this: by becoming unshakable, you do not become a cold or distant. Quite the opposite. You become capable of much greater and truer intimacy, connection, and empathy, because you no longer fear being destroyed or swallowed by the emotions of others or even your own. By becoming a safe haven for yourself, you naturally become a safe haven for others. Your compassion finally blossoms because it is no longer mixed with your fear. To strengthen this new way of being, we invite you to a centering ritual. Every morning before you start your day and every night before you go to sleep, take a single minute. Sit in silence, place a hand on your heart or plexus, and simply feel your center, your inner stillness. Then declare within yourself, like a royal decree, no matter what happens today, I remain here in my center. And in time, you finally become the lighthouse. The lighthouse does not try to calm the ocean. It knows that this is impossible. He is not afraid of the waves that crash violently against his base. He simply stands firm on his rocky foundation, shines his own light, and serves as a guide to all who are lost. His function is no longer to be affected by. His function is to be a constant source of light within himself. We have journeyed together today from the reactive fragility of the leaf in the wind, through the construction of the glass walls of the ego, to the discovery of the indestructible center of the self. And from the alchemical disarming our triggers, we have arrived at the vision of a sovereign life, the life of the lighthouse storm. And the central truth that I hope will anchor in your heart is this: true strength, true invulnerability, is not in the absence of feelings. It is in the presence of a center that is vast enough to contain all feelings, all pains, and all joys, without getting lost in any of them. For the ultimate goal of human life, as Jung showed us, is individuation. It is the realization of the self, and a person who lives from his or herself is no longer a victim of the world. He or she becomes a conscious participant, a partner, and a co-creator of his or her own magnificent journey. The world outside will remain the world. The storms will come, the waves will break. You cannot control the ocean, but you can and must, through this inner journey, discover that you are not the small, frightened wave. You are the entire ocean. The peace you seek is not in the calm. It is in the discovery of your own